New concepts and ideas to help you reach your full potential. Reach your full potential. Reach your full potential. Small win, small win, small win. Keep your momentum going.
The Success 101 Podcast.
Welcome to the Success 101 Podcast. This is your host, Jarrod Warren, and each episode, my goal is to bring you a new concept or idea to help you maximize your full potential. Thanks for joining me here today. Now let's kick things off.
And we are back, live episode number 41. Emilio, I'm so excited to have you here. And those listening in, I'm excited to have you here as well. Emilio and I have been doing a little bit of traveling lately, and I'm glad to be able to get this episode back out to you guys because we're going to be talking a ton about peak performance measures today, how we can increase that, how we can grow that. And if you're enjoying the Success 101 podcast message, we would love for you to share this message with friends, families, business partners, anyone who you feel could benefit from higher levels of peak performance. And if you're really enjoying it and you think the podcast is awesome, head over to iTunes, give it a 5-star review. Emilio, I'm really glad that they've made that easier to do now in the new podcast app. If you pull up the Success 101 podcast app on your iPhone, click on the cover art, and it'll take you right down somewhere on the bottom of the screen there. It'll take you to a place where you can leave a 5-star review. That's what lets Apple know where to rank us in featured rankings and on lists to get this peak performance message out so that we can help so many people. And we wouldn't be where we are today, downloaded in over 130 countries every 30 days with thousands and thousands of downloads if it wasn't for you guys that makes this thing work. So we are so thrilled and thankful for you. So what's going on, Emilio? How are things in life? I know you've got a lot of great stuff to share with us today.
Oh, man, it's going fantastic, man. Always good to be here. You know, last weekend, I don't even know what day it is these days. I don't know if it was last weekend or the weekend before that I was at the Bulletproof Biohacking Conference, the 5th annual, my favorite conference.
Man, I missed it. I was watching you guys post stuff out there and I was just so wishing that I could be there.
Yeah, I know. It would have been great to have you, man. It was interesting though. It was my 3rd time at the conference. And normally I just, I show up and I check out the speakers, the vendors, connect and everything. Well, this is the first time that I was actually a vendor in the technology hall. So I was just working 24/7, hardly ate anything, hardly had a break. We were a huge hit. I was with Pulse Centers and we had a huge booth and it was just non-stop. And so obviously a good thing, but it was crazy. We did about 355 demos.
Wow. How long was each person getting to sit there and demo the equipment?
So it just depended. We try to do about 10 minutes, maybe 12 minutes for each person. But if someone was really interested in the product, had more questions, wanted to test one of our accessories, then we just kind of fill it out. Maybe we'll throw in another 5 minutes, another 2 minutes, maybe even another 10 or 15 minutes. So it all depends.
I'm glad I wasn't there because I would have probably asked you guys to sit there for about 3 hours on that thing. So as much as you and I have talked about it.
Oh, yeah. And it was great. So some people did. Of course, we had so many people come in like a couple times during the day, 3 times a day, as well as, the next day and the following day, the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so, yeah, we've generated a lot of leads and a lot of really good top people. I mean, to give you an example, the CEO of Bulletproof Labs is now up and running about a week or a week and a half. And
I saw that.
Martin Tobias is his name. And he stopped by and I talked to him. And, we spent about close to an hour answering questions, showing him various things. Let's just say that that conversation went really well. And it's extremely, extremely close that they will have it in their Bulletproof Labs. So we're waiting right now on just a couple more questions from both CEOs, and it's looking really good.
Yeah, it was really cool to be able to see you posting about the setup. That's the part that, lowly people like me don't ever get to see, right? I just show up and test out all the stuff, but it was kind of cool to see the setup. And you guys, you had such a huge booth. Even at 10 or 12 minutes, just based on the stuff that you and I have talked about before, I'm sure that was enough for people to really feel a difference as they were, getting charged up with the electricity and all of that.
Yeah. It's funny to see everyone just light up. Even like, when I say, one of the things I say is on a scale of 1 to 10 before I turn it on, 1 being you can't feel anything, 10 being this is way too intense, get me off of this. I want them at around a 7 or 8. This thing goes for like magnetic field strength anywhere from 1 to 104.5. So I'm slowly starting. They're like, no, I don't feel anything. Well, of course, because I'm going really slow. And then as it starts going up, every 10 times out of 10, every person is like, whoa, like their head, their eyes get bigger, their, eyebrows raised. They're just kind of they've never felt something like this before, especially if someone knows PEMF and has tried various PEMFs out there. This one's unique. This one's different. You can feel it. And then, of course, you can raise that intensity if you can take it to get deeper penetration into the cell. So it's really cool to see that, like you said, within the 10 minutes, really just in the 1 minute of them feeling that, it's pretty crazy.
That's so awesome. So let's go ahead and steer people that way for people who haven't heard our previous episodes on the PEMF technology. I encourage you guys to go listen to that, but where can people find out more information about this that you're talking about, since we don't have a ton of time to go into it here today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say two things, guys. You can email me at E as in Emilio, Palafox, which is my last name, Palafox, at pulsecenters.com. So if you have any questions or comments, let me know, or you can just go directly to the website, pulsecenters.com. But if you email me, I can take care of you, answer any questions, send you some information. So appreciate that.
That's awesome. Well, let's dive into our show here today. I'm so excited. And I'm coming back, Emilio. I'm coming back to this issue of BDNF. I know we've talked about this a lot before, but there are some things, man, that you have to keep coming back to if we're going to talk about peak performance. And I've been doing a lot of studying on BDNF. You've mentioned on this show several times that BDNF is like Miracle Grow for the brain. And I've heard John Rady say that before as well. I'm not sure if that's where you got that from or if that was independent, but John Rady, the author of Go Wild and Spark, those two books really spoke to me. But I want to throw out a question to you guys here, and I don't think we've ever mentioned this before, but Emilio, did you know that you have a 1 in 3 chance of developing Alzheimer's disease or some other form of dementia in our society today?
I didn't know that it was 1 out of 3. Wow, no.
1 in 3. And that could either be, there's different levels of that, right? There's so extreme. There's some examples that are so extreme that we all have people in our family whose grandparents, parents have gotten Alzheimer's to the point that it's horrible, right? It's just such a devastating disease, or dementia as well. And they can't even function, and it ends up, likely killing them. But then there's other people that just have little missteps here or there, and maybe they pass away of old age before it gets, too bad. But it's either going to be minor or it's going to be bad. But in our Western culture today, there's a lot that we are doing, or as we'll hear today, maybe not doing, that is leading to that. And so the question would be, is there a way to boost brain function now and prevent dementia later in life? I'm working with a lot of partners right now who are in the field of brain and lifestyle and genetics and all of those sort of things. And that's really the goal, is how can we try to figure that out? Because there's not a cure for either one of those things yet, but there are ways that we can prevent it. So one of the main ways that researchers are coming out today saying that we can come up with a solution for this, and one of the self-imposed biohacks, if you will, is to raise our BDNF levels. So let me just recap real quick. I know you and I have talked about it before, but what is BDNF? And just feel free to jump in here at any time you want to, but it's brain-derived nootropic factor. And what is that? It's a protein that can be thought of as Miracle Grow or brain fertilizer, as we mentioned. So it helps develop new connections, repair failing brain cells, protect healthy brain cells. There's just so much around having enough BDNF and protecting our brain as it relates to peak performance, but also, as I mentioned, to keep us from neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, dementia, those sort of things. So when these levels are high, then you can acquire new knowledge easy. Memories are retained easy. People feel happier. You're kind of rocking on all cylinders. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to have brain fog from time to time. We all have that because of our diet and our air and the things that we do. But it's almost like a natural antidepressant. When those levels fail, you can imagine the exact opposite occurs. But the problem is, when the opposite occurs, it's not a 1-for-1. When we're retaining knowledge and we're cycling through our different brain cycles and our neurons are firing, we feel good. When it goes the other way, it becomes extremely detrimental. So clearly, if you guys are hearing the message here, we want more BDNF. Emilio, talk to us just for a second before I really dive into really kind of transforming our brains from what seemingly could be aging brains into youthful brains. Talk to us about the work that you've done or the study you've done on BDNF.
Well, I know that I first kind of got into BDNF when, in Bulletproof, and especially with Dave Asprey's recent book, Headstrong. In terms of how to increase BDNF, it was definitely that Miracle Grow for the brain. And anytime, anything has to do with the brain and, because I'm always about muscles, right? I'm always looking at how can I increase my brain muscle, my heart muscle, my gut muscle, if you will, my cell muscle, all that kind of stuff. And so when I heard of it was Miracle Grow for the brain, I really tied it in a lot when I was doing my neurofeedback, not only for myself, but for my clients. And then, because I like to exercise a lot, speaking of muscles, And it's so funny, we're talking about this actually right now. So today, every Wednesday, I do resistance training, once a week, like 20 minutes, if you're doing it right. And that's one of the big things, that it raises your BDNF, just really stressing the mitochondria so that they have to basically build stronger systems. And this is, I've read some of the stuff from Dr. Doug McGruff's Body of Science, and he talks about this as well. That's kind of been my training in terms of just do certain things to boost it, like exercise, avoiding sugar, processed foods, intermittent fasting. We talked about fasting in our last podcast. Mental stimulation, giving my neurofeedback. I eat like a lot of, oily fishes, getting into some sun. And of course, certain things like, eating more curry, turmeric, blueberries, red grapes, things of that nature. So just kind of surrounding my lifestyle so that it's just easy, and it's almost kind of just like doing it, while I'm sleeping, in terms of always finding ways to increase that BDNF, because I know that it does so much for the brain and for the body.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll give kind of a one-off here, since you mentioned turmeric. So good for so many things, including inflammation and those sort of things. But Organifi, from what I can tell, and this is not anything I know about. It's just from what I've seen just through social media posts. I think my good friends over at Organifi, Drew Canoli, the gang over there, has introduced, they've got their green juice that I've talked about before. Then they came out with a red juice. Now they've got Organifi Gold. Have you seen that? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of Organifi, but not too much detail in terms of the gold or anything like that.
Okay, so have you ever tried their green juice, their green juice powder?
It's really good. It's amazing.
Yeah, so shortly after that kind of became really well known, probably about 6 months ago, they put out red juice, which is like beets and a lot of things for like circulatory and oxygen performance, those sort of things. I just saw Ben Greenfield yesterday drinking Organifi Gold, which one of the primary indicators, or one of the primary ingredients in that is turmeric. And it's for a host of things. But I encourage you guys, I can't speak to it because I haven't had it yet, but I know them and I know their products, and it's always great. So go check out Organifi Gold. I don't have an affiliate program with them. Full disclosure, I'm not getting paid by them, but I do believe in what they do. And if you guys go check it out and you want to buy Organifi green juice, red juice, gold, whatever, just enter Success 101 at checkout. You'll get 20% off of your order. But I'm curious to go dive in. But turmeric is kind of the main leading. There's reishi in there as well. There's just a lot of really good things to help with inflammation, brain fog, those sort of things. So since you mentioned it, I just wanted to throw that out there. This BDNF, I mean, as I mentioned, we want to make sure that we're turning our aging brains into youthful brains. And we don't have time to cover it here in a podcast, so I'm going to skim the surface. But I'd encourage you guys to go do your own research. So a couple of things, Emilio. How do we get more of this? The main thing that research keeps pointing back to is movement and exercise, because as we've talked about before, those things really can be separate. Movement and exercise is the biggest indicator that we can naturally use to boost BDNF and cognitive functions in young people as well as in old people. BDNF is also critical for a healthy heart. What do I mean by that? It's not just for your brain, it's for your heart as well. So there was a recent study done from, I believe it was Johns Hopkins University, where they started looking at these different tests that were done on BDNF receptors in the heart. So we know that depression is a common cause of heart disease in males. If you do any study on heart disease, depression is a huge indicator on that. And that could go along with stress as well. But people who are depressed also tend to have much lower levels of BDNF. So what they're trying to say now is that there's a huge link between depression and heart disease, because those BDNF receptors are not getting the ignition that they need to help raise a lot of your BDNF levels, not only in your brain, but also throughout your body. Okay, so I'll go through a few of these. What I want to talk about here is probably 5 or 6 ways that we can boost brain function and body function with BDNF. First one is exercise, as I just mentioned. That is the very best way and the easiest way to boost BDNF levels. Study after study that you guys can look up will show you that even short bursts of exercise can dramatically raise BDNF. So we've got to create this lifelong habit of exercise and movement, because again, those things are different. Go listen to our episode on that. But our brains and our hearts are going to keep functioning optimally because of the BDNF levels that we're raising. Number 2 is to avoid sugar and processed foods, or especially high fructose corn syrup foods. Those things are going to do the exact opposite, guys. Those are going to drain your BDNF levels. Anyone who has a diet of that, and this is what I was saying here in the West, if we're not careful, we could eat a lot of seemingly healthy, quote unquote, things that have a lot of BDNF drainers, so to speak, in them. So clearly, for optimal brain function, we've got to eat the right foods to increase BDNF. And again, we don't have time to go into all of that. I'm just giving you guys the high points here. Intermittent fasting, we're coming back to that again. As you mentioned last time, our episode was on fasting. There's a growing body of data and research that shows that restricted calorie intake or restricted feeding, intermittent fasting, can also be a huge indicator of you increasing the BDNF. Okay, so it's not just an act of resting our guts periodically or detoxing, but even as fasting as short as 12 hours, which, for a lot of people, they're going to sleep most of that. That's not a hard thing to do, right? But it's going to have a beneficial effect as it relates to the BDNF. The next one is mental stimulation. The whole adage of if you don't use it, you lose it. I mean, even things like crossword puzzles, reading, doing mind games, doing these things that keep our mind sharp increases that BDNF. Also eating really oily fish. Having a high diet of fish is going to help with that as well. Getting out in the sun. We've talked about before, I'm part of Alex Sharfin's mastermind class, and one of the main things that he talks about doing, and I've heard you talk about before, Emilio, is getting up, getting at least 20 minutes of sun exposure each morning, especially for people like...
Oh, yeah, every day.
Yeah, people like me that work in office buildings or in suits every day, long sleeve shirts. I've got to make sure I'm getting out and getting that sun exposure. That's also going to help to increase that BDNF. And then as far as your diet goes, eating more, you just hit the nail on the head, eating more curry, turmeric, red grapes, and blueberries. So what do those things do? Those are going to be found with high levels of curcumin. But all of these things have been shown to increase BDNF. And crazy to think something as small as a blueberry or loads of blueberries that you're eating can help prevent Alzheimer's disease. So play around with those spices. Research other foods that can help protect your brain. Resveratrol. I've heard Todd White from Dry Farm Wines talk about this a lot, just as he's promoting the way they process their wines. But resveratrol, that's found primarily in red grapes, has also been shown to boost those BDNF levels. So blueberries, red grapes, curry, turmeric, all of those things are not only great for fighting inflammation, but it's also going to increase the BDNF. And then lastly, do something, guys, to reduce stress. And I just say do something because different things are going to reduce stress in different ways for all of us. But just as the diet, just as depression, just as lack of exercise, just as all of those things can really suck your BDNF levels down and not only be harmful for your mind and your heart and bring on increased levels of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, high levels of stress also do the exact same thing. So find something you guys can do each day, whether that's meditation, whether that's, anything that's going to key you down or help really key in and help you unwind. Those things are going to be super helpful to build the BDNF. And then, of course, can't say enough about sleep. Lack of stress, increased sleep, increased diet with the right types of really antioxidant or spices that we just mentioned. And then some of those other things that I just mentioned are really going to help our listeners out there increase BDNF. And exercise is the easiest way. There's just not enough movement going on out there from people to getting their heart rate up. And very, very small doses of all of these things can dramatically improve BDNF levels. So hopefully you guys key into that. I want you to go do your own research, but just several things that popped up lately, Emilio, that have really keyed me into this BDNF idea that it really is Miracle Grow for your brain. And we're also learning it's Miracle Grow for the receptors in your heart as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you keep talking about the exercise being one of the most important things, and people do that. And, resistance training, like I said, today at 2 p.m. is every Wednesday is when I do that for at least 20 minutes. But another one that's really huge, like huge boost in BDNF. A lot of people don't like to do this. I certainly do not like to do this, but I do it every Sunday. And they are sprints. Ooh. So speaking of exercises, I'll just kind of let people know kind of my routine if you're interested. So like every Sunday in the afternoon, you sprint 400 yards like you're running for your life from a tiger. After you sprint 400 yards, you lay down on your back for 90 seconds. After you lay back for 90 seconds, lay down on your back, you're going to sprint another 400 yards immediately. Then lay down again on your back for another 90 seconds. Okay. And so that's going to be a huge boost in BDNF. You can use a treadmill or stationary bike if you have to, but it's nice to be outside. I always go outside, find a stadium just around the neighborhood, and make sure that I sprint those 400 yards, rest, and sprint those 400 yards. So yeah, a little exercise for you guys, maybe once a week.
Sounds like you've been diving into Headstrong a little bit.
Well, that's what I did. So I immediately when I'm writing that, I have to put everything on my calendar. I put those things when I read them in Headstrong, back when me and you were reading it, put that in my calendar. I've been doing that ever since.
And if you guys haven't checked out that book, I I did it on audiobook and I was so blown away by it that I went and got the actual like hardcover version for my wife. I think she kind of thinks I'm nuts half the time, but I'm slowly winning her over. She's taping my mouth shut at night and all. She's just like, yeah, okay, this is too much. But I'm slowly winning her over because she's seen the life change that I've had, just complete 180 in my life. And just little things like this, guys. I had a meeting this morning, in fact, with my young financial advisors, and just talking about how we overcomplicate things way too much. And I think life is one of those things with our stress, with our lack of exercise, our lack of sleep, all the things I'm guilty of in the past. It's really these small changes, something like sprinting 400 yards, laying on your back for 90 seconds, which really helps your nervous system reset. It gives your body kind of a full reset, research shows. And so that's really cool. And I'm curious for you guys, if you go out there and do more research on BDNF and how it leads to higher levels of peak performance, share that with us. Share with us what you're doing or what you have found or what you've read that's different maybe than the things that I just mentioned. We'd love to hear from you. And I know, speaking of exercise and diet and all the things that I just mentioned as it relates to your heart and your brain, I know that you've got a kit that you were telling me about that talks about your benefit of your gut and your brain, which there's so much research out there about your gut really being your second brain. Tell me a little bit more about what you have learned about that, and that way our listeners can hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first thing that we were talking about early in this podcast was about the Bulletproof Biohacking Conference I just got out of. And one of the main keynote speakers, I think one of the most brilliant minds in the room, was this guy named Naveen Jain. He's known for, a founder and former CEO of InfoSpace. It was one of the contributors to the dot-com bubble and kind of became one of the largest internet companies in the American Northwest, but before the crash happened and everything. But anyway, his occupation now is he's a co-founder and chairman of Moon Express, which is pretty interesting because this is a company that's mining the moon right now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So
is that similar to like what Peter Diamandis is doing with all that like asteroid mining and things like that?
Yeah.
Man, I look at what I get up and do each day and I'm like, man, these guys are mining the moon and mining asteroids. It's just like sci-fi stuff, right?
And Peter Diamandis, he was actually a guest speaker at the conference.
Oh, he was?
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
It was a special guest. And I was, oh my gosh, I wish I could have heard his stuff. But anyway, so this Naveen Jain guy, by the way, the most humble, coolest, most brilliant mind. Before I forgot if it was the day that he had talked to her afterwards, I was at Todd White's Dry Farm Wine private party, and Naveen Jain was there, and I was in a circle of like 4 or 5 people that were all talking, and he's there just having a conversation. We're joking around. We're doing Instagram stories, and I'm like, my gosh, this is Naveen Jain right in front of me. It was absolutely wild, so cool. Anyway, he's this entrepreneur from, he's originally from India, and he's just doing some fantastic things. What's so cool about this guy is that he's got a lot of money and he's giving it away and he's giving it away and he's building these companies like VIOME. VIOME is the company that I'm about to talk about in terms of this kit and what it's doing, but to solve the world's biggest problems. And he talks about the entrepreneurs like us and you guys listening are the people that are going to be solving the world's biggest problems, that are competing against some of these biggest companies because we have the drive, we have the knowledge, you're listening on these podcasts. And the investors, people who may not be someone like you, are willing to give money to you because they want to be a part of that success, but they might not have the drive, the knowledge, the wherewithal to do all this kind of stuff. And so he really kind of inspires a lot of people to do this. And so he has the resources, the money, and capability to provide this new kit that's more of a reasonably priced kit that is doing a whole lot more than the other kits out there. And so I'll give you an example. So first of all, I just did the kit. There's 2 kits inside VIOME. By the way, VIOME is VIOME. There's a Metabolic Intelligence kit, and then there's a Gut Intelligence kit. So if for any of you are wondering what that is, so your Metabolic Intelligence is basically, it determines your unique way that your body processes food into energy. The Gut Intelligence, with all our microbes in our gut. So this identifies the overall health and the biochemical activity of the trillions of microbes that live inside your gut. So like I said, this Naveen Jain guy, man, he's pouring a lot into this. There's like millions of dollars in research spent on this premier national lab that they have. And now it's being brought to us. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
So is the kit, is it live right now? Like people could go out and get it, or is it in the...
You can go get it right now.
Because I know you said you were just doing it, but I didn't know if maybe you got kind of an inside track to be able to try it out before it was released?
No. Great question. But they were giving, there was a special discount there. The Metabolic Intelligence, you'll measure your waist and hip measurement. You'll check your pulse. What you'll do is kind of see how you feel, your hunger level, and your glucometer reading. And they have a glucometer and everything in the kit there, so you have everything you need. After that, you mix this like challenge powder that has some glucose, some other stuff in it. It's like kind of challenging your metabolism. You drink that, you wait 30 minutes, then you do the whole thing again, right? Like, how do you feel? What's your hunger level? What's your glucometer reading? You wait 45 minutes, same thing again. Then you wait 20 more minutes, and then the same thing again. So that's the metabolic side of things. The gut intelligence is, of course, it's your poop sample, guys.
Nice.
So, you get a sample of that, shake it up in this little thing that they have in this, little kit.
Everyone was so excited to do this before they knew they had to go grab a sample of their own poop. But hey, that's the only way you're going to know. I mean, there's so many tests out there. They can only scratch the surface of what's going on inside of you without grabbing a poop sample.
Absolutely. And so the fascinating thing about this is not only because other kits out there, they can show you what's in their gut and all their microbiomes and, everything like that. But now that they're able to show, this company, which is a revolutionary thing here, is actually, well, what is their role? Out of all these 40 trillion microorganisms living in your gut, and that's approximate number there, how many of those 40 trillion, like what are the roles of there? What are they doing? And how can you turn on and off some of the ones to maximize you and to minimize some of the things that are depleting you, right? So that's the biggest thing here. And so if someone's wondering, well, what is the gut microbiome and why does it matter? Well, they help you digest your food. They produce beneficial and harmful chemicals. They control infections by pathogens. They regulate your immune system, and they even control your emotions. Simply said, is ever had a gut feeling? And that's actually a true thing. When we talk about our gut brain, there's a gut feeling, so they even control your emotions. Now, one of the things you talked about earlier was Alzheimer's. So this is something awesome in terms of the latest research here. So these microorganisms, which basically make up your gut microbiome, have implicated in maintaining optimal health, as well as many chronic conditions, such as the ones you mentioned: Alzheimer's, there's obesity, diabetes, Parkinson's, artery disease, lupus, autism, you name it. Now, if you take care of these guys, these 40 trillion micro friends, you can maximize your wellness and potentially prevent disease. And so Naveen Jain in conversation, I think they did a Bulletproof Radio with Naveen Jain and Dave Asprey. They were talking about how some of the latest research is showing that, it starts in your gut. And if you can, because here's the point, right? 90% of the import that we receive is really coming in from the gut. And so if you can figure out what is happening inside your gut, you can essentially see how the human body is going to react to it. And so, there's a fact that 25% of all of the metabolites in your body are produced only by the microbiome. And basically, when you start to see that, why do we have so many diseases that, never used to happen before? Well, you start to think about autoimmune diseases, the allergies, the enzymia, the Alzheimer's disease, all this stuff that we just mentioned. The symptoms may be different, but what they talk about on the Bulletproof Radio that was pretty interesting is that the underlying cost of all of them is exactly the same. They're finding out that it's the imbalance of your microbiome and your immune system, how it responds to the environment that you're in. And so it's just really interesting. It's like, okay, well, yeah, especially with our Western diet and all this kind of stuff, we are consuming all this stuff and it matters. And so the more that you can learn about your 40 trillion guys down there who are really controlling a lot of the things, then, once what's cool about this company is that you find that out, then they tailor your macronutrients, your micronutrients. Basically, they tailor your diet as well as your lifestyle based on you. So they use your gut intelligence and your metabolic intelligence, how you process, food into energy. And they use that in combination to figure out the best thing for you, your diet and lifestyle for you. In past podcasts, you and I have talked about that the future is personalized food, personalized medicine, personalized fitness, based on our...
which is an incredible idea.
Yeah.
Because we are all different. We're the same, but we're very different. So why should everyone do the same thing when you're not experiencing the same thoughts, feelings, ideas, chemical components, makeup, all that sort of thing, especially gut health. Why should we all do the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's all based on we all have different genes and epigenetics. And, speaking about genes, one of the things Dave Asprey mentioned too, actually, this is pretty awesome. He was talking about, the mitochondria and everything. And he asked, Naveem, like, do you consider the mitochondria to be a part of your microbiome? And he said, yeah, it is to some extent. He said, think about it. It's RNA, right? He said, what we're doing is, well, if you think about in the beginning of us, we were a single cell. And as we became this multi-cell thing, this symbiotic relationship, mitochondria was a bacteria, right? And then it became an organelle within our own cell. In fact, our human DNA only produces, this is a fun fact here, guys. So our human DNA only produces 20,000 genes. Now, our microbes in our gut, they produce 10 million genes. So DNA being 20,000 genes, our microbes in our gut produce 10 million genes. So you can see right there, who's controlling who. Again, man, I can't stress this enough about how the microbiome is key to a lot of things. And I think this company is doing an amazing job, not only identifying all of them more so than anything else, but also, showcasing the role of each of them and how they can personalize, your diet and your lifestyle to you so that you can perform better, so that you can optimize your performance.
That's so awesome. And I have a feeling at some point we're going to have to come out with a podcast on this personalized health because it's gaining so much. I don't even know. I don't think popularity is the right word. It's a fact that we have to go that way, and the technology is out to do it now. And so whether it's, as I was mentioning, some of the depression stuff, as far as your heart and brain are connected, your gut controls a lot of that as well. 70% of serotonin is made in the gut, and it travels up to the brain and makes you feel a certain way throughout the day.
That's right.
Whether it's your microbiome, whether it's the flora in your gut, the mind-gut link, all those sort of things, as it affects cognition, as it affects thinking skills and memory, digestive system, metabolism, the reduce of heart health conditions, even as stuff as like type 2 diabetes and things like that, that's just ravaging our diet here or ravaging our people here in the Western culture. There's just so much that we're going to be able to learn from having a healthy gut, having a healthy microbiome, having healthy levels or increased levels of BDNF, as we talked about earlier. And tell us one more time, just for those listening, where we can get the kit.
Yeah, so you guys go to just www.viome.com. There's a Viome annual plan. I believe it's for it's $399, and it includes 1 year of service. And it basically, and so what I know is that it'll test both of those things. You can get tested in 4 months and 6 months again. So there's available plans there to where after you do your $399 and you get all this tested and seeing everything, you can, and so, when you see everything, one of the things I mentioned is those diet and lifestyle recommendations. So the reason for that is you'll be able to fine tune the function of your gut microbiome to minimize the production of harmful metabolites, as well as maximize the production of the beneficial ones, right? And so then you can do maybe another test 6 months later to see how that's been going. And one of the most exciting things about this is that because Bulletproof and VIOME are almost partnering up, the point of VIOME is actually will show you why the Bulletproof diet actually works. Because people think it's a religion and they think it's a whatever. Well, no, it's science. And now they're wanting
to think it's a fad. Most people just think it's a fad.
So actually VIOME is now proving this, especially, and that's why David Asprey is so excited about this, because let's say you take your gut, let's say you do the Bulletproof diet, Bulletproof ways, or things that we're talking about on this podcast, you get tested again 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, 8 months later, whatever. And then you're going to see, like I just said, how you're minimizing the production of harmful metabolites, you're maximizing the production of beneficial ones, then you're just going to be showing up a whole lot better. And there's going to be science and data that's proven this. So guys, go to www.viome.com. By the way, I don't have any money tied to this. It's just, I'm excited about this because it's changing the game, and it's going to be, like we talk about in these podcasts, episodes, optimizing your performance. So $399 for the annual plan. You'll get the kit, send it all in. You'll get the analysis of your metabolism. I mean, the goal of all this is just vibrancy, energy, and well-being.
Yeah, and you can't put a price on deep dive health like that.
Oh, yeah.
I know Dr. McCullough talks a lot about this, and I really trust a lot of the stuff that comes out from him because he is so on cutting edge research, a lot of the bulletproof stuff. I know Dave Asprey follows a lot of his stuff.
He was at the conference too.
Yeah, I mean, he's typically always there because he's such a trusted advisor for Bulletproof and just a lot of the biohacking stuff, even outside of Bulletproof. But hopefully what you're hearing from this, guys, from Emilio, and this is not like new stuff. They just now have an easy kit that you can do it with, whereas before you'd have to go, well, before it wasn't even available, right? I mean, it was just the highest research labs out there, and then it became available for you going to a clinic or going somewhere. Now you can do a lot of this stuff in your home because they've got the technology to do it. But guys, all the stuff we're talking about here today is going to lead you toward higher levels of peak performance, and the secret to improving your mood, your brain health, your gut health, or your bodily health, all of that is in your gut. And as I mentioned, unhealthy gut flora, that can impact your mental health. People don't think about your stomach impacting your mental health, but that's going to lead to anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, all the things that we mentioned. And just as you guys have neurons in your brain, you've got neurons in your gut, and that produces a lot of those neurotransmitters like serotonin, as I mentioned, which is linked to mood and linked to BDNF and linked to personalized health because it's different levels for all of us. So limit sugar, eat, a lot of we didn't get into it today, but a lot of the fermented foods like kombucha, the right type, as long as you're minimizing sugar, a lot of the fermented foods out there that can help these natural gut or this natural flora in your gut really thrive on that. That's the best way to optimize your gut flora and really support brain health and normalize your mood. But with these kits, now you can actually see what you actually need on a personalized level. I just think that's awesome. It's so cool.
Yeah. And, the last thing I'll say too is that, this company, if you do your due diligence, you'll see why they're going to lead the game here and they're being a game changer, not only because they're able to, this is given this type of analysis and this thorough, comprehensive analysis, and also like matching it up with your metabolic intelligence at the same time, that would cost like triple this, if not more.
Right.
One. Two, they're combining that, which is fantastic. Now they're taking an extra step, this company, and saying, okay, what are the role of each one of them and how can we minimize the bad ones and maximize the good ones? And then, of course, that's where that personalized stuff comes into play, which I haven't seen in any other company. So that's freaking awesome to me. And that's why, like you said, it's not new, but they're taking it, extra steps.
Absolutely. So much stuff here that we could just go on and on about. We look forward to having you guys back on another awesome episode. He's Emilio Palafox. You can catch him by email at emilio@crossphoenixcoaching.com. And give us your Pulse email again, just in case people want to hit you up there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it's epalafox@pulsecenters.com.
And I'll link that up in show notes. Of course, I'm Jarrod Warren. You can reach me or get in touch with me through my team at info@success101podcast.com. Thrilled to have you guys here. And as I said, share this message with so many people who need to hear more about it. And we will just want to keep spreading the peak performance message to make everyone better and thriving. And we'll catch you guys on another awesome episode. Until then, guys, see ya.
Thanks, guys.